Chapter 10. Allure. While at Oxford, I studied modern and ancient religions. That was one of the most enlightening periods of my life. I was amazed at the man-made religious constructs designed to bring purpose and order to people's lives throughout the ages. In Estolia, deity asks for very little and gives great rewards for our faith. Other religions seem an inversion of what Estolians experience, asking much and giving little or nothing in return. Xavier Archimedes Zakarian, Capitulo 86. The sailboat Promise of Deity was nearing Gibraltar. Jackie and Leo were having dinner. We will arrive the day after tomorrow in the morning. Not quite in time to be there at dawn, but before noon at the very latest, Leo said. His smile was broad and he seemed more relaxed and joyful than before. Jackie sipped the wine he served her. You really love your country, don't you? He had changed over the last 24 hours, although she was not sure how. His expression when he looked at her that morning on the deck of the Promise of Deity had an extra level of warmth. Her isolation, after her mother died, and particularly once her father fell ill, meant that couldn't trust the impression she kept getting, that he was exhibiting all the signs of romantic interest and attraction. Even if she was imagining it, she enjoyed being with him and fantasizing that he had fallen in love with her. I do love my country. I am very excited to return. I did not expect to be away this long. I've inconvenienced you, Jackie said. I'm very sorry for taking so much of your time. No inconvenience, just a slight delay. It is my birthday tomorrow, and my cousin's a week thereafter. As he will be king, there are many festivities and ceremonies planned. He put a vinyl record on the turntable. Romantic music played softly in the background. He brought the wine back to the table so he could refill their glasses. He set the bottle down and bowed slightly before extending a hand to her. May I have this dance, Jackie? She put her hand in his and followed him from the dining alcove to the spacious lounge. She closed her eyes once she was in his arms, pretending they were on a date, that he wanted to dance with her because he was in love with her. She became aware of a hot, hard presence between them. Her eyes met his. Leo? You are incredibly beautiful, Jackie, he said. The expression on his face and the tone of his voice communicated more than his words could. He kissed her. His lips caressing, enticing, pulling a response from her. The brush of his tongue over her lower lip encouraged her to open to him, and the kiss transformed from gentle persuasion into flaming passion. He pulled her hips closer to his, the outline of his aroused flesh pressed against her. Jackie, he whispered, you are intoxicating. Extraordinary. Perfection. He pulled away so his eyes could search hers. After another long intoxicating kiss, his voice was thick with emotion when he said, Jackie, I want to give my soul into your keeping. I want to marry you. He meant it. He wanted to marry her. She felt like she could read his thoughts as she looked at him. From the time the stitches on her buttocks were removed, her daydreams were all about him falling madly in love with her. His eyes searched hers, looking for any sign of acquiescence or rejection. She was not sure what he saw, but he seemed pleased when he started to kiss her again. Their earlier passion intensified as Leo pulled her tight against him. Jackie felt like a volcano about to erupt, a balloon ready to burst as his kisses grew more passionate. When the music stopped, Leo pulled away from her, cooling the intensity between them. She slipped her hand in his and stepped away from him, leading him down the passageway to the door of his room. He stopped their progress with one hand on the door frame. He said, his voice lacking conviction, No, Jackie. She had a flush on her cheeks, her lips were swollen from his kisses, eyes dilated with desire. We must, Leo, she whispered. She deftly unbuttoned his shirt. He pushed the door to his room open and stepped inside, pulling her with him. She caressed his bare chest, his hair-roughened skin was moist, warm, almost hot to the touch, trembling in reaction to the brush of her fingers against him. His scent was musky. His head went back at the feel of her delicate fingers exploring his chest. He pushed the door shut and leaned against it. Despite his earlier protest, he found the thin straps at her shoulders, pushing them to the side until her dress fell off her body, pooling around her feet. She was not wearing a bra. When he opened his eyes, he sucked in his breath, looking at her body exposed to his view. She moved closer to him and allowed her fingertips to drift over his abdomen to the top of his trousers. When she fumbled in her attempts to unfasten his pants, Leo's hands settled over hers, as if he would stop her, and himself. She did not know what to say or do. Her tongue explored the swollen contours of her lower lip, and he watched it while he unfastened his pants and dropped them to the floor of his cabin. She was out of control. She wanted to discover what was possible with this man. She led him the short distance to his bed and ran her hands up his chest to his shoulders. "Jackie!" He again protested, but then something within him snapped. In moments they were both naked, and he was pushing her back onto the bed. She was amazed at herself, at the wanton sensuality rushing through her. She never would have thought she would be in a position of being willing or able to seduce a man. She wrapped her legs around his waist, and the last thread of his self-control broke as his body plunged into hers, possessing her as much as she possessed him. Their frantic, passionate coupling was elemental, ignoring how untried she was, as Leo's fierce driving need was matched only by her own. The rush of pleasure as their lovemaking reached its crescendo was something she would remember for the rest of her life. What seemed like a long time passed before his breathing and heartbeat dropped back to normal. He held Jackie tightly against his body. He had no idea what would happen, but he knew one thing for certain: Jackie, this beautiful, extraordinary woman, had taken his soul into her keeping. The obligations were strictly delineated for the heir apparent. If he, Leo, was the heir instead of his cousin Sebastian, he would be marveling at the strength of character of the future queen. His brother's role as last resort would be ceremonial rather than functional. He would be proud to keep the promise of Zacharias for the 87th generation. In 9 months, when Jackie gave birth to their son, he would be ready to don the crown. He would be more certain than ever about the role of deity in the lives of all Estolians. His actions this night, and over the next 7 days, would assure his nation of both safety and prosperity as they began the successful transition to the 87th capitulo. Not once, in 86 capitulos and almost 2,700 years, had the son of the keeper been born before the heir to the throne. Never had the right of the heir apparent to bed and then wed his future wife prior to his cousin been an issue. He was third in line to the throne, yet was the oldest boy in the rising generation. Once he saw Jackie's aura, he realized the enormity of the sacrifice his father asked him to make, when he asked him to wait until Sebastian was done with his seclusion before beginning his own, and he could not do it. When faced with Jackie's sweet seduction of his sanity and senses, he was unable to avoid placing his soul within her keeping at the earliest possible moment.